Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hedin, owner of Illustrious Hardwoods in sunny Mesa, Arizona. I want to thank everyone that's tuning in live on the Facebook group. Thanks for watching. Thank you to our sponsors for helping put this show out. And I want everyone to know that Floor Academy is here to help you move your business forward in a positive direction. There are tons of places to find out the information on hand skills. I saw the industry was lacking in the business side. Those conversations weren't happening on a level that I thought was always productive. So I wanted to help facilitate those conversations getting started. I want to see people be able to grow their businesses successfully, scale them, add employees, find ways to retire, be profitable, all that fun, good stuff. So thank you for listening. This week, I have got Brian with me, and we are going to talk about getting into working with builders, which a lot of people would say, oh, that's not profitable. You can't make money there. They don't want to pay anything and blah, 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 blah. Well, Brian's running a business and he's making money. So there's ways to do it, and we're going to dig into that. But first, I will have Brian introduce himself and give a little background, and we will start digging into the meat and potatoes of what he's doing, how he's doing it, and why it's working.
Thanks for having me, Kyle. We're at this point, full-fledged flooring company. We sell and install tile, wood, carpet. Majority of our business is, as you said, builder work. Taking a step back, we kind of started just in the tile industry and kind of evolved to the full package, because that's what our customers were asking. So that's what we over the years decided to commit to.
Well, so let's take it all the way back to the beginning, because you don't have you weren't an installer. So you happened into this business and started as a sales rep. So let's start kind of back at the beginning, and let's work our way through it and how these relationships develop to start forming the business you have today. So how'd you even stumble into getting into the flooring world as a sales rep for a distribution house?
Well, it's funny you asked. I remember seeing the ad in a newspaper. Won't say the name of the company, but it had a name that made me think, oh, must be a sales position where I have to travel. So I thought, oh, that could be cool. Long story short, it was a tile distributor. So, when I walked into the interview, it was nothing like I was anticipating. I thought I was going to be traveling the country and all that. But one thing led to another. I was hired on as a sales rep. And specifically, my job was to call on existing builder business and obviously grow and get more builder work. That particular company, I'd say 80% of their business was builder business, selling tile to the builders, the home builders of the world.
Now, when you're working with the builders, are these small independent builders, or are you doing the, Fulton and KB and like the national builders?
Right. So back in the day when we started, majority of it there was a little bit of production called the KBs of the world. Most of it was kind of the middle of the road type builder. Not building a monster mansion, but not building a $100,000 house. It's kind of that in between. So to answer your question, at that point, it was kind of all over.
Okay. Is that, and I'm assuming this is probably pre-2008, because the guys you're talking about are the guys that are not around right now, which is really disappointing. And that's one of the reasons why we have the housing market we have now, is because that mid-grade guy that can come in and build a couple hundred homes doesn't exist. It's either like one-offs or you're getting thousands, it seems.
Right. And this is early 2000s.
Okay.
So it's before all the economic stuff and all that, when everything was going fine. It was about that time frame.
Okay. So now you're in there, you're selling, you're building relationships. What was, and were you doing any stuff to independent retailers or even like the larger retailers, or was your job specifically builder only work?
Specifically builder only work. That initial tile company that I started at, they obviously had a showroom
Mm-hmm.
and they serviced the retail market. Like I mentioned, it was a small portion of their overall revenue. I was I guess, call it the head salesperson that went out there and called on all the big customers that we had, as well as try and, capture new ones.
Okay. It's funny. I was brought up, and when I stumbled into this business, I was only doing residential remodel work. And so that's my bread and butter. That's what I understand. That's how I know how to go forward. And you stumbled into like, hey, I'm meeting all these builders, like this is what I know. And I think that happens a lot of times, is like, you kind of, if you start with commercial work, you get holed into like commercial work. And if you're doing residential remodel stuff, you kind of end up there. And if you do new build stuff, then you're over there. And it's just, you do what you're comfortable with and what you understand. And sometimes you don't get outside of it, but it's funny. A lot of people start looking at it and they're like, well, there's no money in that. Well, then how do all these other people survive? And so I love having these conversations because it can open your mind to tons of other possibilities. And I mean, there's some very large retailers out there that have divisions that, focus on this. These people are doing, our builder work, and these people do our residential work, and these people do our commercial work. And they have these different divisions, and each division is successful. But if you were to try and pull somebody from one to the other, they might fall on their face just because they've never been there. And so building those relationships and being able to move them forward is super important. You've got, all right. So you're building all these connections. So where's this journey kind of go next? I mean, obviously early 2000s, it's booming. I'm sure it wasn't hard to make sales and get clients at that point.
So how it evolved from me being a sales rep, this particular company, we had, I think it was 7 branches throughout the country, and we were one branch. And of all the 7 branches throughout the country, we were the top branch, which kudos to, how it was ran pre me and all that. It was like it was a good situation that I stepped into. At one point, not long, I would say I was there 3 years or so. It had I was pretty stable at that point with all my connections and stuff. And a company outside the US purchased that company and all the branches, European company. And they started dictating how we ran the business, how we ran the branch, and more importantly, what we could stock, what we couldn't stock. And being in the tile distribution, you have to have, like I mentioned before we started, if you're supplying a domestic market, with an imported product, you need to have stock, and you need to have the right stock. And my gentleman I worked for was very good at that. Well, when that happened, they started tweaking some of the things we did, and we saw the writing on the wall with, we're gonna piss a lot of good customers off, because we're not gonna have what they want when they want it. If we're only allowed to inventory this much or this product, and we know there's selections coming for products that, are selections not coming from stuff we have, and it's kind of, they're forcing us to sell something we know is not going to sell.
Yeah.
It's probably the easiest way to say it. So we looked at each other and said, hey, you want to try this on our own? So the 2 of us, left. And that was kind of the leap of faith, as they say. And, it was kind of at the time I didn't have kids. So I was like, yeah, sure. What the heck? Let's go for it.
Okay.
He's, 20 years older than me, had a lot more to lose, I guess, in that respect. But, I trusted him. He trusted me. And
okay. And that's still pre like market crash, is it not? So
yes, sir. Absolutely. It was pre-market crash. And I'll never forget the first pallet of tile we sold. What is it, 600 feet, 300 feet, whatever it is. And we looked at each other. We thought we were going to retire. We just sold, $1,000 worth of tile.
Woo!
Yeah, let's cash in.
There you go.
But it was before what was it, '06 or whenever it was, and you know, learned a lot of lessons leading up to that.
Hmm.
We'll go over those later, but yeah, it went from being very fortunate and all that to, you know, at one point looking at each other with not much money in the bank saying, well, what's next? What do we do?
Hmm. Hmm. So you go out on your own. You start your own tile distribution warehouse. It's You had the connections, right? And this is the part that is always hard for me because you don't want to go poach people, right? Like you can't I have no there probably wasn't a non-compete in place, I'm assuming, and that's why you were able
There
to
was
do it
not
so
one.
quickly. But
Correct.
you don't want to go and just outright call those old clients and be like, "Hey, I'm over here now, like start buying from me." So how do you evolve that part of your business, cuz you already had the relationship, but it's kind of like it's there's ethical issues with just walking in and being like, "Hey, I started my own thing. Like, here's my card. Start buying from me." So, how'd you walk that line?
Well, it was kind of, do you stick with a sinking ship as it was when this new company took over, or do you, try and save the day with telling these, potential new customers, hey, you can keep doing what you're doing, but I can tell you where it's going to lead, or I can show you the path to
Mm-hmm.
continued customer service product, um, and the ability. This was, something that was very important to us, being able to pick and choose, like I touched on, what products we want to provide. So maybe we don't want to provide the same one that they're, showing down, down the way. Our kind of thing was, because we don't have our hands tied with what product we have to show and sell, let's show the market stuff they've never seen before.
Okay.
And that's kind of where we went, what we did with whether it was different format, different sizes, different colors. Again, this is early 2000s, so nobody had heard of, 24 by 48 tile or,
Yeah.
pattern tile. Not to say we jumped ahead that far, but we didn't have our hands tied.
Mm-hmm.
But so that was kind of from an ethical standpoint, it was, hey, we're doing this. We'd love to have you with us. And, it probably took us, I'd say 3 weeks. And we just went out and talked to customers. And of those, say 13, let's say 13 of the top 15 customers, we were able to switch over to our business.
Okay.
It wasn't price. Because a lot of the people that committed to us, up front, they never asked what price. They knew, hey, we'd taken care of them in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Knew something was going on, but at the end of the day, to your point earlier, it's all about
Yeah.
relationships with builders.
Correct. Yes. If they know you, like you, trust you, it's going to be much easier to do business with you, especially if you were probably starting to have struggles with their orders under the old company, and you're able to say, "Hey, look, I got this. It's going to be taken care of. We're
Right,
golden over here." So I like it.
right.
So that's obviously you probably are able to boom for a little bit, and everything's looking good. But then as this develops, uh, we're we're working our way up to, like, this big market crash. Were you offering installation services at that point? Did that come in early, or is that something that was like down the road and part of the evolution, like after the fact, because you knew you needed to change things?
No, we were in a small capacity. It was kind of a learning when we first started because they were, the builders were asking for it. So we did a little bit of it, not much.
Mm-hmm.
And that installation evolved. It was before, well before the economic stuff that we were in install, not the capacity that we are now. But most of our stuff was at that point in time selling particularly just the product.
Okay. I mean, what does that look like? Like, they're coming to you, they're buying the product, and so it's obviously they, generally builders are subbing everything out, and they're, you know, look, hey, I can just go find installer. So is it they were having issues with the installers they were finding, and you were able to find better people? But if you weren't coming from a strictly sales background, I guess it's kind of a two-part thing, right? Like how are you able to find quality installers to go fulfill their needs? Because even they were struggling to do it, right? So how were you able to better find a solution for them than they were?
Yeah, and the biggest thing, the need for the builder, and again, it depends on the size of the builder. We kind of deal with that mid-range builder. They wanted the one person to call, hey, you handle the flooring, you handle the tile. As far as finding, and that's another reason I, slowly got into the installation business. You're only as good as your, worst installer or, weakest link, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't willing to bring people on board that came in looking for a job. Had to see their work, had to hear about them, know about them as a person before I bring them in to my umbrella, to kind of wear my name, so to speak.
Okay.
So the biggest need, the biggest drive on getting in the install was the builders asking, hey, Brian, we'd love it if you could just take the whole thing. We'll worry about the painters and the drywall. I'm tired of doing takeoffs. I'm tired of this, that. And, most of these builders do enough where they don't want to try and figure out how many pieces of bullnose they need for a tile wall, mm-hmm. or how many transitions they need, or, T-moles, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So you're able to, offer quality install and good products.
Everyone's complaint about builder work is that there's no money in it. So how were you able to not only appease yourself with what you were doing, but also the contractors you're bringing in to do it, right? I know I sat down with one of the firms here in Phoenix at one point, and they handed over a price sheet, and I looked it over, and I was like, okay, is this negotiable? And there was no room to be able to have it be the way I wanted it, and meeting in the
Right.
middle was not going to suffice, in my opinion, let alone the production timeline that they wanted. This is obviously for one of the bigger builders, right? They're putting up thousands of homes in communities, and they wanted a couple thousand square feet of hardwood installed in a few days. And I was just like, I'm gonna have a crew. It's me. Like, no, that's not happening, especially at these rates. Like, I can't. So how'd you find guys that, were you able to negotiate higher than normal rates and find people that are willing to work for slightly lower than retail rates? Like, how, I don't like, explain all of this system to me. Like, how are we making this happen?
So as far as the rates, over the years, I've kind of accumulated all of my competitors' pricing and how they price it and this and that. And my thing was, I don't want to be the most expensive. I definitely don't want to be the cheapest, want to be the best. And, the builder that you mentioned, that wouldn't be my bread and butter, somebody doing 1,000 homes and all that. Because that exactly what you said is how they would approach me if I walked in their office. This is what you have to do it for. Mm-hmm. When you get into, a guy that's building, maybe 2 homes a month or one, one every other month, they're more focused on, they want to have a fair price, but they want a good job. They don't want issues. More importantly, they want, if there's something that's, that another trade messes up, you go back and fix it right away and all that. You do a good job with that, you really don't get nickel and dime for 25 cent, 50 cent, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Biggest thing is doing a good job. And, had you not said when you were describing that story to me, Kyle, that they did 1,000 homes, if they did, say, 25 homes a year, and he would have thrown a price sheet at you like that, I would have walked. Mm-hmm. Because that's his mentality is, hey, he's hired to get the best price, period. He doesn't care about you. It's just a different mentality when you deal with a production builder versus, a guy doing 50 homes a year, 20 homes a year. It's more of a relationship. Mm-hmm. It's not, you're not dealing with a different purchasing agent every 2 months because he leaves and goes somewhere else. Totally different atmosphere.
Yeah. Well, and it's, once again, it comes back to having that relationship. He's also a smaller company like yourself. That reputation means a lot. People go to Bob, the home builder, because they know that Bob's putting out quality homes with the people he's found to partner with. And that's essentially what you're doing. Is you're not partners on paper, but you are partners in the fact that you help make the someone's dream come alive. He sold them a vision of a home. Now he's got to deliver. So maybe the production build thing, I would love to get rid of them, to be honest. If we could just get rid of all these national home builders,
Yeah.
I would be thrilled to see a bunch of smaller guys just putting up little blocks at a time, right? Like, let's just build a street with 20 homes on it, and we're good. I think the quality would severely change.
Oh
It's
yeah.
scary what you can walk in and see in some places. So I think this model of finding the smaller guy is that's one of the keys to your success, is that it's keyed in on just you're not looking for production work, and you're not looking for one-offs, but it's enough to keep you busy and able to keep a company afloat, and you get a couple of those, and then you really have something, instead of having to find, I'm constantly having to go to the pool, and I need a new homeowner, and I need a new homeowner, and I need a new homeowner. Whereas you've got somebody that just says, look, I got 2 houses this month, 3 next month, and 3 the month after that. Like, just give me the bids and let's
Yeah.
go. So have you found it easier to build around that because it's somewhat consistent, and you don't have to go to the pool to get a drink of water as often and keep, dipping your cup in to go?
Yeah, it's, the one caveat, the difficult part about it is every builder does it differently, from templates to the way they pay to what they expect on the job to how
Mm-hmm.
they prefer to be installed. So that's probably the biggest difficulty. You start with one builder, then you go to, 5 or 10 or whatever, and you're never going to have, they all demand something differently, not demand in a bad way, but their way they've done it, the way their dad showed them to do it is the way they expect me and my guys to do it, which is
Mm-hmm.
fine. It's just keeping that separation of, okay, this is Bob the builder's home. Bob likes, he doesn't use wood transitions. He goes wood to tile. He doesn't use bullnose. He uses Schluter edging. Just so many little facets like that. And I think that's one of the differences with us compared to my customers, is our competitors. My competitors are saying, hey, this is how we do it. This is the only way. Where we're kind of a chameleon. We can change, long as you tell us ahead of time how you want it, we can accommodate that.
Mm-hmm.
Waterproofing walls. Everybody wants something different, a different product. You got to do this. I mean, I can go on and on, but that was kind of one of the things from a learning perspective, that if you want to continue to keep customers, builders happy, you have to, kind of follow their lead. You can educate them and change their mind on some things that's necessary, but they want it done their way. It's their house.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's an interesting choice. Is it's very boutique. It's, look, I'll give you the experience you want, but that's harder to manage, as you said, because now you have to keep track that Bob wants it with, you know, these types of profiles, and Tim wants it with, bullnose, and this guy wants, grout line transitions of wood to tile, and this guy wants to put in actual wood T moldings to cover it. And so do you think that hinders you from being able to grow, because now you're having to keep track of 10 different ways of doing things, and then, okay, I'm outbidding Tim today, so I gotta write it up this way, and then I go over to Bob's house later and I'm writing it up this way, and then you got to make sure that you get it to your installers written up that, hey, look, remember, you're over here now, so you got to do it this way. Do you, instead of having that solid system that's consistent every time we walk in, we do A, B, C, D, and we end up with a great product? Do you think this, well, it's nice to offer it and you've built great relationships around it, do you think it hinders the growth that you have because you can't replicate as fast?
No, I don't think it hinders. It gives you more of a chance of missing something, obviously. And the way I've kind of developed it over the years is, if you have, say, 10 builders, every time I start a takeoff, I have a template that tells me, or tells my girls when they do a takeoff, hey, this is a Bob the Builder house. Well, on that paperwork, before they start doing the first wood takeoff tile carpet, it already says, for me to know, and also for my guys in the field to know, hey, no transitions in this house. We float tile to wood, so pay attention when you're setting the tile that you set it high enough that it's going to meet flush with a 5/8 or whatever inch thick wood. Um, oh, this Bob the Builder, we go to the ceiling, we tile to the ceiling in every bathroom, black and white. So stuff like that. I mean, you might have a template on a builder, and I've probably got 7 to 10 different line items. And I always tell my guys, follow the paperwork. Follow the paperwork. Don't do like last house I sent you on, because it's different. Every builder is different, and there's just, I came from the tiles, lucky enough to come from the tile industry. There's so many parts and pieces and difficulty with tile itself and the install. Wood and carpet are much easier to manage and figure out and all that. But I think that kind of lends itself with being able to do the full package. And if you can do, tile is by far the hardest, even though I come from it.
Well, so you streamline the system because you have a template for each guy or gal, whoever you're dealing with, but you have a system in place to say, look, this is how we go out. We handle this one. And so it's not necessarily that it's convoluted. It's very clear. And then you found people that actually know how to read paperwork, which is a huge congratulations. I'm I'm happy for you that you found somebody that understands how to read paperwork, because
Kyle, it drives me crazy when somebody or my guys or whatever will call me and ask me a question. You know what my response is always? What does the paperwork say? Got your answers. You just didn't read it all.
It's you know what? I was the kid in school that the teachers would hand out that fake test to. And you're supposed to read all the questions and everything first, and at the end of it, it just says write your name on it, flip it over, and like sit there and do nothing. And I'm, da 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 da. Oh man, really? I just did all that for nothing. Dang it! So I've learned that look, just because this hardwood looks the same as that other hardwood, let's get out the instructions. Let's look for any nuances. Let's double check and make sure. Reading the instructions as a man is not a bad thing to do, especially in a world where the liability can get away from you very quickly and it can become very costly. I would rather spend a few minutes reading instructions, going over a work order, double checking with the client on what to do. In fact, I just had the project I'm currently working on. I am dealing with a general contractor that I work with, and I've met the homeowner. She's very sweet, but like we never talked about which way to lay the floor or anything like that. And I had my opinion, but I was like, oh man, like I better go have this conversation real quick before I just start throwing things down. And it turns out that my way that I would have preferred to do it was not what she had envisioned in her head. She was like, oh, I never really thought of it. Like, I think it should go this way. And I was like, oh, that's funny. I think it should go the other way. So we sat there, we talked about it. I was able to use one of the visualizer apps and show her, and she came around to the way I saw it. But it was, if I would have just done that, who knows what would have happened, because it was never even on the paperwork. But it's those little minute communication details that really, really matter in a business.
Right. All about the details.
So you have this business going, and obviously pre-2008 there was a bunch of these like mid-sized or smaller sized builders. How did the model continue to survive? Because a lot of these guys were just completely wiped out. So how'd you keep this moving forward?
Yeah, it was tough. And going back to that time, one of the lessons I learned is, and I'm sure you've heard or read about this, most of your viewers probably have, is when you have a customer that's 25% or more of your business, it's not healthy. And I had 2 customers that were half my business. And of course, this was before everything fell through. Well, when everything, went down the toilet, one of the guys had sold before everything happened. The other one went out of business. So now I'm, half my revenue shot right there. Not to mention, some of my smaller guys
Hmm.
were struggling too. So, just like everybody, if I always tell people that quite a few of us, say together, when you're having a bad day, it's not as bad as it was in '06 or '08 when all that happened. So it's good. I mean, wasn't at the time, but I'm glad I was fortunate enough to go through it because I learned a lot. Saw a lot of people do stuff and try to learn from their mistakes. But more importantly, to kind of put things into perspective when you have a tough day or, you know, butt heads with somebody, kind of go back to survival. The ability that you were able to survive at that time, which is what we did. Like everybody, we were in survival mode.
Well, and so what did that look like though? I mean, were you just out selling to anybody at that point? Like you own a distribution business, so were you trying to get into more retail stuff then? Were you going direct to homeowner? Because the builders they just kind of disappeared overnight and everything just stopped. And if
Right.
or for the most part stopped. So what pivot did you make in order to keep cash flow coming in?
The only thing I knew to do was to go out and, even though hardly anybody was building anything, was to go out and get new customers. That's my only thing that I knew to do, the only thing that I could control. So I knocked on doors, walked into places,
Hmm.
um, was able to get, new builders that were, not building as much as they used to, but willing to talk because we're all kind of looking around going, now what? So all I knew how to, combat the situation is to get more work. So, I was able to make some additional relationships, even though they weren't doing a whole lot, they were still doing more than I was before I went to go see them. Or, I was growing a business on a small way,
Hmm.
but more importantly, building new relationships, getting what little business was out there to get, so that when things did slowly tick up, I had all these new builders that, okay, now they're starting to build. So it was able to kind of ramp up from there. But to answer your question, we didn't really get any more. I mean, we did at that time. I remember there was quite a bit of remodel going on, and that did offset some of the losses of business we had. I do remember that quite a bit. A lot of remodels.
So was that you selling like the builders? Did they switch to being like remodel GCs and they were drumming up business that way, or was it you had just found a way to sell more to homeowners as opposed to builders?
Right. We have a nice showroom, so I think just the people, the homeowners of the world have decided, hey, we're not moving. We're just going to remodel. And I think everybody kind of jumped on that remodel bandwagon. And to your point, you hit it right on the head. A lot of these GCs I worked for that were building houses were full on remodels now. So I, again, followed their lead. Hey, let's pivot and go to remodel.
Hmm.
As long as it's business, let's do it.
Okay, give me 1 second here. I'm going to interrupt this real quick. The International Surface Event, the annual flooring, stone, and tile sourcing experience in Las Vegas, has a unique experience for the industry. Introducing the Surfaces Show Home, Calibu Vineyard by Jennifer Farrell. Surfaces is working with celebrity design and TV host Jennifer Farrell to develop a 7,300 square foot show home in California. The home is under construction, but due to the technology from Visualizer Plus, the industry can experience virtual room reveals each month. Then plan to view Calibu Vineyard in person or virtually summer 2022 during the home tours. Visit www.calibuvineyard.com now to sign up and join the journey. So you have GCs have come into it and they're not building, they're remodeling. Let me ask you this, like it drives me nuts that there's people that will sell direct to homeowner. And I get it, it's a business model. Excuse me. So did you switch the model of like selling to builders to direct to homeowners, or did homeowners come in, look at your stuff, and then you were like, look, you have to find somebody else to purchase this. You need to go through a contractor.
It's a good question. Back in the day when everybody was clawing for business, it was basically, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it, and
Okay.
didn't have to go through GCs, or didn't, it was, again, just kind of clawing at the work. Personally, as things got better, the market got better, when people would come in and want to buy, or want us to do tile or wood, I always tried to recommend contractors, obviously current customer or current builder GCs I work with. So it's so much easier from a flooring perspective working through a GC than and going to a homeowner, rather than me dealing direct with a homeowner. It's one thing if it's 100 square yards of carpet or 1,000 feet of wood, removing tile and putting wood back. But when you get into bathrooms, backsplashes, and wood, it gets kind of hairy. With I don't like managing that type of project with so many tentacles, so many hairs, because there's other trades that need to come in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, it's kind of a help the GC out. Hey, here's a good lead. They want their whole house remodeled. They're wanting me to come in and do all the floors, but there's a lot more going on. They need a GC.
Okay.
So
So it's definitely like, once again, it's building those relationships, having the person that like, hey, you're really good at this, let me do my thing, and then we're gonna
right,
partner and we can be successful. And I think that's where a lot of the industry fails, is there's this, people have the scarcity mindset, and you're going to steal the work from me, and I have to have all of it. I'm offered this, so I need to get as much of the pie as possible. And I know that I constantly talk about how I don't like people touching my pie, but look, I can't set tile. So I have friends that do tile very well in Phoenix, and people are calling me and asking for tile stuff, and I'm like, hey, go over here. There's a project right now that's supposed to be like half wood, half tile, and I was like, I can't do that, but this guy can, and we'll communicate and work together, and we will solve all of your problems
perfect.
to make sure that this installation and home renovation happens successfully for you. Whereas, why take it on? Why do you have to take it all on by yourself? I don't see the point. Even if I was to be offered, if somebody came to me and offered me like an apartment complex, not that that's like up my alley, but I'd consider it if I could get the right rates. I can't
Hmm.
do that as one man, but
Right,
I can make some phone calls and try and put together a team of 5, 6, 8, 10 guys, and let's work together and go bang it out, right? If you can go and you just handle that unit, like each unit you handle is worth X amount of dollars, and you get all of that money, and I get all the money from the units I handle, and let's make it happen, because what's that do for all of us? It's keeping everyone
right,
busy, happy, making money, and we were able to move our businesses forward. Whereas none of us get it now because we don't want to work together. And so somebody
right,
else comes in, and who knows who gets it, right? Some, maybe the hack bids it super low, and all these apartments start having failures in them, which then costs people more money. And they could have just, had you been willing to work with people, you could have had a successful project happen. It just
well,
blows my
it's you,
mind.
yeah, you just solved the GC's, his problem. I mean, you just had the solution. You went in. Hey, I'll do the wood. I got a buddy that will do the tile. We'll take care of all your problems. You don't have to call anybody else. We're done. And the guy obviously loved and trusted you. You refer this other guy. It's a no-brainer. He can move on to the next thing. Finding the drywall guy. He could check off the flooring because you just solved. Even though
Mm-hmm.
you didn't mess with the tile, you solved the whole problem of flooring that he had to deal with.
Yeah, and that's, we run businesses. Owning a business is solving people's problems. That's what your business does. Is people get hung up, right? Oh, I'm a tile distributor, or I'm a flooring distributor. Well, no, you solve someone's problem. I'm not a flooring installer. I solve your problem. You think your floor is ugly? I'm going to put something beautiful in it. What's it take to get you from A to B? It's not just about putting a floor in or a shower in. You have to look at people as human beings, and what's the problem they're experiencing, right? I think this goes to like selling on price. It's you can sell on price all day long if you want, but it's just going to be a race to the bottom. But if I'm selling on, I can solve your problem, which is exactly what you've built, is you have builders that come to you and they were like, hey, I don't have an installer. You were like, I got it. I'll take care of that. Right.
Right.
So solve problems, folks. Don't, it's not about the price, which let's, you said you like being in the middle on pricing. So how does that look? What were you able to kind of come up with, having been around it, and the builders are coming to you and they want, like you said, they want a fair price for a project that's going to continue to function, especially if you're doing showers, right? No one wants to have the shower fail 2 years in and then their homeowners redoing it. So how were you able to build these relationships and negotiate the rates that, you're somewhere in the middle, you think is fair? And once again, like, your contractors are happy, you're happy, builders happy. And then are they even asking for prices a lot of the times, or have you built some relationships where they're just like, Brian, look, go over here, look at these, and then send me the bill when you're done?
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to, with dealing with different builders, every one of them does something different. I have some that will say, okay, Brian, here's blueprints for a house. Give me budgets, give me allowances. So I'll plug in, $12, whatever for wood, 8, 10 for tile and all that. They'll send it in my showroom, and I'll make sure when they look at product, they're staying within that allowance number that I've already given the builder. Mm-hmm. So I can give them a $12, I can give them a $20. Now he'll tell me, hey, Brian, let's stick to 15 or 12 or 10 or whatever that number is. Mm-hmm. For tile, you bump it up a couple dollars. So when they meet with me or one of my girls, if they pick something that is over and above, they know, hey, I'm upgrading. A lot of them work that way as far as pricing goes. And then when sticking back to that same situation, when I deliver, after their selections are done, I deliver it to the builder. They reconcile whatever they do and say, all right, Mrs. Jones, you're $10,000 over budget. You want to go with it, or you want to go back and value engineer this? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how that works. But I have other builders that, they have they have their own location with their own samples I put in there, whether it's tile, wood, or carpet. Yeah. And it's more of I priced it all every year. I price everything out. They have a spreadsheet, that I put together, so they know when they pick something out exactly what it costs and what to charge Mrs. Jones. But as far as, it's really nothing where it's hard when you sign a contract for a year, especially this past year or two, when things seem to escalate, get more expensive every week. But most of the builders, they realize, with windows and trusses and framing and all that, everything's going up. And I say, hey, I know we signed this contract in January. Here it is in July. I can't honor these pricing. I'm going to have to bump it up 50 cents. And there's never any pushback, because it always goes back to, hey, if you're doing a good job, treat me right, I'll treat you right. Mm-hmm. So, and they know I'm not going to take advantage of the situation. I don't like I tell them, I don't need practice. I don't want to do it for free. So just like anybody, you don't need practice.
Well, and I think it's communication, right? You can't help the price increases if the manufacturers come to you and they say, hey, the prices are going up for X, Y, and Z. There's no reason to eat it. It's not our money. It's not your money. It's not the builder's money. It's the homeowner's money. So if the cost goes up, the cost goes up. I can't control that. So I think it's awesome that you're out there communicating and saying, look, hey, the prices went up, and everyone's kind of on board with that. And it happens. You said you had people coming into the showroom. So I want to ask a question. I have a buddy that runs a showroom, and they do a lot of builder work. They split it up, and they have like sections. And so there's like the orange section and the green section and the black section or whatever. And so they know, based on like the homeowner comes in and they can say, hey, I'm working with, Billy. And they know that Billy has the prices, and they're like, okay, hey, you need to go to the black section, right? And so they look around in that area. So when you're setting up these allowances, do you have the showroom kind of set up in those same allowances?
Exactly like you said. Now, it's not as obvious probably as you just portrayed in your what you just mentioned, but it's something internally that we all know. Hey, stay in this particular range. We know which racks of tile to show them. We know which racks of tile to not show them. But if they look over there, they know we tell them, hey, it's an upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question, whether it's wood, carpet, or tile, there's a purpose of where stuff is placed in the showroom so that internally me and everybody else knows, where the budget stuff is, the upgrade stuff, and then the stuff that costs $100 a foot,
Yeah. And then with that setup, are internally where all the stuff is? Do you have some stuff like mixed in on purpose so that you can try and get those upgraded sales, or are you like it's very clear cut and dry, and it's like if the client was paying attention, they could see that there's like clear cut sections, or are you like mixing things
No,
in?
we're pretty open as far as, hey, this is the section. Well, why is it like that? Well, from a tile perspective, you don't have the type of glaze technology on these tiles that you do with the rack over here.
Mm-hmm.
And you go into all the details of tile and kind of educate them why, whether it's porcelain or ceramic. But, even in the wood, why am I looking in this section? Why is this section different than that section? Well, these veneers aren't as thick.
Mm-hmm.
These are, 5-inch planks, not 7-inch planks, different species. It's just kind of an education because, they'll ask you, well, if this is my allowance rack, what makes this rack where I have to pick from? Or, why are these products less expensive than the other ones, basically?
Okay. So have you ever had to deal with a client that's upset and feels like the builder's trying to cheat them because they put in a certain allowance and now the homeowner feels like, hey, this guy's just trying
Absolutely.
to give me crappy products?
Absolutely. Absolutely. My first response was going to be all the time, but that's not true. But, and that's, again, dealing with different builders. Some have the mentality of just get the job. We'll worry about the, upset Mrs. Jones later. But at the end of the day, we got the house, we got the job, which I hate that thought process because I'm always the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the messenger. Hey, I picked the wood out with Brian and, the stuff he showed me, that was in allowance was, I didn't like it. I didn't like any of it. He showed me, 10 products, but they were all 5-inch products. And now I'm calling the builder saying, dude, next time bump up the allowance so I don't look like such a jerk when I show her 6 products instead of the 600 I have in the showroom.
Mm-hmm.
But it depends on the mentality of a builder. Some will put me in that tough position, which, it is what it is. It's their decision. They knew going into it that they were going to potentially put me in a tough pickle, so to speak. But other ones, for the most part, I'd say majority of them don't do that and give me a fair allowance where, if somebody's building a $2 million house, they want to look at more than 5 wood products that are in their allowance. It's just silly.
Mm-hmm.
Or they want to be able to pick from more than, 20 tiles or 2 carpets.
Yeah.
I'm kind of over exaggerating, but, people's expectation when they're building the house of their dreams is, hey, give me the sun. I want to see everything and I want to be able to pick it. So make sure you price it that way before you send them to me.
Which I think is probably more of a communication thing on their end, setting up that, hey, we're building a home, and is it $100 square foot home, a $300 square foot home, a $500 square foot home? Like, how much
Right.
do we really need, and how luxurious do you want to get, right? Do we need to import tile from Italy and it's running, just the tile itself is going to run $300 a square foot? Like, who?
Right.
That's it's. I get it. It puts you in a bad position, right? Because they're sitting there like, oh, we just need to sell this house. Do you have a certain home size that you find like these builders fit my business model best? It doesn't sound like you're out there doing your average like $350,000-$500,000 house. It sounds like you're probably trying to work with guys that are doing things a little more high-end $1 million homes.
Yeah. And that's kind of our bread and butter, I'd say average size home is probably around 1 million. Some more, some quite bigger and some smaller. Um, but yeah, all over.
Okay, but I'm on average, you're looking at upper hundreds of thousands, if not into the low millions.
Yeah, and I'd say house size typically, I mean, are crazy here in Florida, as I'm sure they are where you are. So
Hmm.
it's kind of, what used to be a million or what's $1 million house now used to be a $500,000 house.
Yeah.
That's legitimately true here. But to answer your question, I'd say, 3 to 4,000 square foot house is probably the average between 3 and 5,000 square feet.
Okay. Is that up? I mean, you've been doing this over 20 years now, right? And so the builders that you're working with, and obviously with the inflation and just what's happening with the housing market, I agree. Like what I go and look at in Phoenix as $1 million home right now is not the $1 million home I saw growing up, where like it would be 5,000 square feet, 7,000 square feet. It would have the round, the
Right.
semicircle driveway and columns out front and lions at the, like, on the sides. And,
Right.
it's that's what you picture, like $1 million house in your head. And now you're walking up, and the homes that I see for 900,000, $1 million in Phoenix are sitting on an acre of property. It's a couple thousand square feet, maybe 2,400, and you get a pool if you're lucky, and it hasn't been updated since 1990. And you're just like, but what what is this? So how is that sort of evolved for you, right? Was it 5,000 square foot homes 20 years ago and you were working with these higher end builders, and now that things are kind of coming down, you're still doing $1 million homes, but they're 3,000 square feet on postage size stamp plots?
Yeah, and where I am, I'm seeing the houses, the size of the houses haven't really changed. It's the lot sizes that have gotten smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you get to these lots that are, on water or whatever, it's amazing how they can fit a house, a 3,000, 4,000 square foot house on a quarter of an acre. I'm exaggerating, but you know, that's probably the biggest difference I'm seeing is lot sizes getting smaller and houses staying the same or getting a little bigger than they were. I haven't really noticed much change in the house
Okay.
as far as the size, design, and all that.
Are you noticing anything with the trends? Obviously change over time, but are the do the prices stay semi consistent, and like this is kind of the finish level or quality that you get, and we're just changing out one product for another, or size of product for another, right? Like 20 years ago, it was like everything was 12 by 12, 16 by 16, 18 by 18. And now you have 24 by 48, or you can get, I saw a home where it was 36 by 36 tiles, or you can get the gauge porcelain panels that are 5 feet by 10 feet now. And, the vinyl plank, the laminates, the hardwoods, everything's going from 5 inches was wide 8 years ago. And now if you don't have a 9 inch product, people are like, oh, it's so tiny. Like, what are you
Yeah,
talking about?
no, it's definitely changed. You mentioned tile sizes. I'm doing a project now. We're doing 48 by 48 tile in a master bathroom. Worst part is it's on the third floor of this house. So you can imagine carrying a 48 by 48 tile up 2 flights of stairs. That was unheard of
Mm-hmm.
in my world 10 years ago. Tile used to be 12 by 12, like you said. Now everything's 12 by 24 or bigger. 12 by 24 is small. In my showroom, we have 5 inch wood plank, installed in one of our vignettes. And I cannot remember the last time somebody picked a 5 inch plank. It's probably been 5 years since we've sold a 5 inch
Mm-hmm.
plank. The 7 inch is the new 5 inch.
Yes.
It's the new average. If you, to your point with a 9 inch, they see the sevens, or where the nines, where the tens, or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and carpets, the one little thing I've noticed in carpet is where everything used to be the plush and thick, spongy carpet that people like. Now they want a hard surface feel in a carpet. So they're doing the pattern, the low profile stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, like we talked before, the beiges of the world are gone. Now it's all gray. And it's so funny, Kyle. I'll be at one of these meetings, working with a homeowner, and they'll come in and spend 2-3 hours at a time picking out their wood, their tile, their carpet, and we lay it on the floor so they can see it and take pictures and ooh and ah. And I think to myself, this is the same stuff that another Mrs. Jones picked 2 days ago. Mm-hmm. Took her 3 hours, and they gravitate and pick the same thing. It's so funny. Obviously, I never say that to them, but us internally will laugh. We're like, oh, that was picked last week. We should just pick all this stuff for
them. Well, it's like everyone, how many people have agreeable gray in their house, like as a paint color, right? They just we're gonna go with this. This is what everybody has, and I can't be that guy. Have you ever thought about if you're seeing those trends, right? Obviously, everyone's picking stuff from you. Do you ever put like pre-made packages together where it's like, hey, look, your shower can be this, your carpet can be this, your wood can be this, and like this is what's popular. This is the package, and if you buy it this way, then we can. I don't know if it's a discount, if it's like preset, like whatever. But have you done anything like that? Have you experimented down that way?
You're married, right?
Yes.
If you were building $1 million house and that was approached to your wife, the house of her dreams, and I told her, hey, we've already picked everything out for your new home that you've been waiting for your whole life. I don't think my wife would spin. She's, I'm picking everything. I'm taking all the time that I want. And as you were saying, what would be the benefit to me aside from the, saving everybody's time? I don't think there's any discount. If you're building the house of your dreams, they want to look and touch and feel everything. It's just my 2 cents.
I agree. And it's not for everybody, but I definitely know there's people that get just overwhelmed and they can't do it, right? Yeah. They're hiring designers and whatnot. So I'm wondering if it would cut somebody out, right? They can come to you. It's already preset. They don't need to hire the designer. Like it's already been designed by Mrs. Smith and Mrs. Jones and these 10 other women that all pick the same thing, but they don't want to admit that they all picked the same thing.
Yeah. Well, that's true. There are, you all right? Mm-hmm. There are some clients, some homeowners that'll come in and hire their own designers. Designers will pick everything out for them, and it'll just be basically them coming in and blessing it or saying, yeah, I like it. Out of 10 houses, that probably happens 1 out of every 10. It's not very often. Going back in the years, I remember my record of picking out a whole house was 35 minutes. That's the record of somebody coming in and picking out. But I'll never forget it. She knew what she wanted. She pointed to it, this, that. There were 6 bathrooms in that house. Picked the tile, the wood, the carpet in 35 minutes. But typically, it'll take somebody 2 meetings of 2 hours, so call it 4 hours, before they're comfortable with what they picked. It's probably the average. So I guess getting back to your original comment, I get what you're saying about laying everything out, because every time somebody walks in our showroom, they're overwhelmed for the first 10, 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. And they settle down, know the layout, and then they know, they kind of take a deep breath and are more comfortable with what they're looking at.
Well, I think that's the hardest part is you have people coming in and it's, you walk into a box store or even just a larger showroom, right? And you just see hundreds, if not thousands of samples in front of you. And if you don't know that you want brown, forget about it. Like, how do you even start to make a decision and whittle things down? I think the biggest thing is at least help people know that come with a color in mind, because it'll immediately eliminate 70% of your options. Yeah. And then it's less overwhelming.
Well, I tell the builders, when you send Mrs. Jones to me, mention to her to bring me some pictures on her phone of a wood floor that she saw online that she liked, some bathrooms she liked. And that tile, that wood is in my showroom, but that'll save her a lot of looking and pulling and moving stuff around. If she could show me a concept picture of a tile, wood, or carpet she likes, it's in here. We'll save her a lot of headache trying to, visualize a home. Mm-hmm. in a particular wood, because it's not the same looking at a house with installed wood floors as it is looking at a wood panel of sample wood, that you're laying on the floor. You can't visualize that in your new home, but you see a picture. Oh, I really like that, the way that picture looks. Well, this is that same product.
Yeah.
Okay. Done.
Much easier. And so, I mean, you've turned this into full service. It started off as, hey, I'm just going to sell tile to builders because that's what you were hired to do with this original company, was go find me builders to move product to. They couldn't solve their installation problem, so you took that on, and now you've gotten into, well, look, I just have everything here. I'm not going to just sell you product and let you put it in a showroom. Just send them into me, and I'll walk them through the process, let them make all the decisions, and that way you have that off your plate. Like, you've added a lot of services in here. So is design services part of it? Is this consultation built into any of your pricing, or do you just feel that that's part of the service you need to offer because you're providing the product?
Yeah, it's part of the service that I just feel like our clients deserve. There's not any additional money charged to anybody for doing that. Some of the builders that I work with have their own, office location where they have, like I mentioned before, samples and all that. And they do the selections basically for me. They hand me a sheet with everything already filled out. I don't have to meet anybody in the showroom. So it's kind of, I guess, again, doing it different ways depending on how the builder wants it done. Would I rather have just the paperwork saying, hey, this product goes there, and not have to meet somebody in the showroom for 4 hours? Absolutely. But I think, that service goes a long way.
Let me you're dealing with a different type of clientele. So I know, like, on average, like a retail shop is going to be looking to do like a 40 to 60% margin on product. But when you're dealing with the builder, they're essentially like another middleman, and they become the retailer to the client. So if you don't want to answer, you don't have to, but what kind of margins are you looking to hit? Because you're obviously running higher volume because you get constant repeat work.
Yeah, and I won't answer the margin part, but golly, I wish I could get that kind of margin that you mentioned. Over the years, I've kind of have saw where, like I mentioned before, when you do a large project or large house, I'll just stick with tile, for instance. There's a lot of cost of doing business situations that come up, whether it's tile or wood. Your short transitions, your short bullnose. I can go on and on. And when I do a job, there's going to be, call it $500,000. I'm going to just lose some way or the other. Nothing I did wrong, nothing the guys did wrong. It's just, it's going to show up. So I've learned over the years to make sure, take that into consideration when you price something. Don't do it at something you don't feel comfortable with, and say no if you don't feel comfortable doing it. And a lot of times if you go back and say, hey, I'd love to do it, it's just not worth it, but hey, if you add another $2,000, I can make it work, but you're asking me something that I just can't do. I don't need the practice. Same old story, but
you've developed a system to know where your financials need to be, right? You've done the research, you've looked at the numbers, you've figured out that I can be moving this for X amount of dollars and still be profitable. And it sounds like that's the way the installer set up too. Like you said, you're not trying to be the most expensive. You're not trying to be the cheapest. You want to be somewhere in the middle and provide quality service at a fair price to everybody. But I'm assuming that took time and research, and it started off and it was, hey, we lost on this one, we won big on this one. And like, it probably took a while to get everything dialed in.
Right. And, sticking to the wood floor, like floor prep has always been an issue since the beginning of time. When you deal with these builders, they, it takes education, it's the least romantic, but most important part of a wood floor install. right? The floor prep, making sure you got a flat floor.
Yep.
But when a builder can't see it, he walks into floors that have been done and you send him a bill for $1,500, had a bad slab, he doesn't want to pay it.
Yeah.
But that education and, my thing is don't put good work over bad. If it takes $1,500 to make the slab right, we make the slab right. But that's, every builder I deal with, it's certain ones, it's always a wrestling match.
Are you okay? Are you doing any kind of education classes? I know that like the NTCA, maybe the NTCA has the 5-star program, and in order to then once you get into that, because you have so many like CTIs under you, that you're offered a way, like you have to do so much education and stuff, and that they have a component of it that the architects and the builders, they have to do continuing education stuff to stay up on the up and up, and then you're able to offer those classes. So are you doing any kind of education with your builders to be like, look, hey, I know you don't like the $1,500 bill, but let's all come in, I'll get some drinks and provide some food for the evening, and we're going to go over subfloor prep. I've got this guy coming in that's an expert in the area, and this is why I have to send you the $1,500 bill. And then the next month you have a meeting and you're talking about, why large format tile needs to be done differently than the 12 by 12s that they were doing 20 years ago.
Right. No, to answer your question, I haven't. The education on stuff like that is typically just, face to face over the phone and a conversation. Definitely something worth having, especially when you get into stuff that's that kind of dollars on something they didn't have budgeted for. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, your customers, your builders, most of my guys pretty much have been around. They know a lot about flooring. It's not like I'm catching them off guard. It's just, some of these, I don't know what it is with concrete nowadays. I mean, I had one the other day, the floor prep was $4,000, Kyle, on 2,300 square feet of wood. Mm-hmm. It was horrible and it was bad, and there was a lot of work that needed to be done. But, it's, like I always say, don't put good work over bad. But, at the end of the day, you got to make sure we're passing this cost on, because if you don't bring this to somebody's attention ahead of time, and I've made that mistake, several times in the past, then we're, splitting costs, or I'm eating costs, and that turns into a lot of zeros.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something I'm not interested in. I had a project that, it was probably only a 20-foot difference between the highest and lowest spot in the house, and it was a 2-inch difference over 20 feet in the concrete. It was absolutely horrendous, and it was going to take, I figured it all out. It was out by an average of an inch on like 1,200 square feet. And I was like, yeah, it's going to take 210 bags of self-level. I need $17,000. And they just kind of stared at me like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to need $17,000 to fix this, or I can't do it. Like, I'm sorry to say, but the project stops right here. Like, I cannot install over this floor. I will not take on that liability. And they were like, yeah, we don't have that in the budget. And I was like, sorry, I got to go. Like, goodbye. It's not worth it. I agree. Like, just concrete going into homes. I know that it's never going to be the same, and we have different standards from flooring to what the concrete standards are, but it is just like oceans in there. I don't even get how they get it so far off from room to room, or in the middle of the room there's a 1/2-inch high hump. Like, you have a 14-foot screed you're working with. Where did that come from?
Yeah,
I don't understand.
The worst part is when you bring it to their attention. Like, some builders will have me go out to the job and mark where the high and low spots are and why there's an issue with the slab. So what does he do? Sends a concrete guy out there. He grinds for a couple hours. He's done. He hadn't really fixed a dang thing. Mm-hmm. So we've gone through that process and wasted everybody's time, and I'm still fixing, something that somebody messed up. But yeah, that's, I had one job real quick, about 3,000 feet of wood floor, was told only use 10 bags, even though it needed about 22 bags. Did the job. Homeowner complaining that her kitchen table was rocking. Thought it was the table this after she's moved in. Sent the table back, got a new table. Second table rocked. Got figured something was going on with the floor. Long story short, they get a inspector in there and realize that there's highs and lows on the floor. What do you do in that situation, Kyle?
Me? I wouldn't have installed it, to be honest. If it needed 22 bags, I'm telling them you're pouring the 22 bags or I'm out. But I don't
Now, keep in
care.
mind, let me back up. This is, obviously an ongoing customer builder.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the dance I walk constantly, is doing stuff that, again, like you said, it's not by the book. I shouldn't do it. But do I run the risk of another company coming in there and doing that and then getting more work on top of that?
I This is where it's hard for me, right? I haven't been running that business model. Everything's one off for me, and someone's going to hire me and someone's going to pay the rates I want. And so I look at it from the perspective of, look, you hired me because I'm the professional and you wanted it done right. Well, this is right. If you want to cut corners, the guy over there will cut the corners for you, but I will not. That's not why you brought me in. If you want the best and you want it done right, and that's what I'm going to bring to the table. I'm going to bring the knowledge of what's correct for our industry to the table and say, this is what it's going to take to get it done right so that we don't have problems. Because now you didn't pay for those 12 bags of level. Okay. But now it was installed wrong and you got to rip up the floor. You got to put those 12 bags down anyways, and you got to put it back. Meanwhile, Mrs. Jones is pissed because all she wants to do is live in her house. And
Right.
now it's ripped up again and not done. She sent a table back. Was 12 bags of level worth that? Or can I just tell the guy, look, this is what's going to happen if we don't do the 12 bags. Which outcome do you want? And
Right.
it's so for me, it's easier to go down that road because I've already heard your story and many others like it. I'd rather not. I'm selling that story and saying, look, this is what's going to happen if we go this route. Is it really worth saving the $1,200 by not pouring these 12 bags? Let's just pour them. This is a stupid discussion to even have. You hired me to do it right. So, but I'm nitpicky, and I don't like, once again, because I'm doing everything's one off for me. If I lose it, somebody else is going to hire me. I mean, I'm outbidding projects, and homeowners are asking me questions, and I'm like, look, I'll be honest with you. I would love to land your project, but I'm really not worried about it. I will tell you all the information you want. At the end of the day, I want you to be able to make an informed decision so you can pick between contractor A, B, and C, and that you can tell the difference between the apples, the oranges, and the tangerines over there, because no two bids are alike. And they just kind of like, you get really weird looks because who comes in trying to win a project that way? Well, I'm not, because I don't care. Someone else. I got 4 of these this week. Someone's going to hire me. And
Right.
I
For the right reason.
for you, I think you could look. You got 5 other builders, right? You got 17 builders. One of them's going to keep you around when you start sticking it to them, and that's my opinion. I may or may not be right. Time will tell, right? I'm still very early into my business, and I've taken a very. It's not the normal stance that people take. So,
Yeah, and that's one of the things with dealing with builders is you'll find yourself doing stuff that, from a business perspective, does not make sense. But I always, always try to do the right thing, even if it means costing me a lot of money. It's always in my mind. I want to, I don't want to. What do they say? Win the battle but lose the war.
mhm, mhm.
You know? And that's one thing. That's the downside when you deal with builders is it's constant business until you give them a reason not to, and you don't want to fight over 12 bags of prep, or whatever that case is, and then not have their business next year.
Yes, and I agree. I think that's probably an episode that I need to have done, and I need to find the person that has the numbers to back it up. But lifetime value of a client is something that's not talked about a lot. And you're
Yep.
right. There's a lot of lifetime value in a builder. So, if my direct to homeowner cost is $1,200 on 12 bags of level between product and labor, Look, I know that you could, if they're already pouring 10, having somebody pour 12 more, like you're not paying out a ton of money to a contractor to do that. I mean, maybe you're all in for 35 bucks a bag, depending on
Right.
product. So 12 bags, 35, what is that? 350 plus another 70, 420 bucks. Can you eat 420 bucks on a project? Probably.
Hmm.
So was it worth it to eat 420 bucks on that project so Mrs. Jones didn't have a rocking table? Maybe, but live and learn. You now
Yeah.
maybe next time you spend the 420 bucks, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
But what's that gonna fighting over it, right? That's my point. Is if this builder comes to you with 5 more homes and each home nets you $30,000, there's $150,000. What's that's less than a percent. It's not probably not even a half a percent.
Yeah, and I think it was, if anything, you think I'll ever get questioned on floor prep from this point moving forward with that builder?
No,
You'll
probably
never,
not.
never. It was a learning lesson. Yeah, I say on all parties. Um, but it was, kind of wish it didn't happen the way it happened, but I'm glad it happened because now I can do the floors and make them flat
Hmm.
and charge accordingly for every job moving forward. And
Yeah,
it's,
because he never wants to go through that again, and you don't either. But
yeah,
it's also like I said. Right now, you have that story to take to all the other builders, and if they want to question it, you can be like, "Hey, man, call Paul. Paul will tell you
right,
exactly why you do not want to do this right now. Let's not squabble
right,
about it."
right.
Man, I love it. This was great, informative. There's a lot of points in there to take away and how you can actually get in and build something that's not the ordinary business model, and I like it. So, is there something I didn't ask you that I should have asked you about being in this world of dealing with builders?
We kind of touched on some of the stuff, um, doing stuff like you said, the life value of a customer is the most important thing. There's not a, to your point, if you don't get, Jim's job when he comes into your showroom, you've got somebody behind it, but there's not an infinite number of builders,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so you've got to take care of the ones. And I will say, in a builder environment, they have the superintendents that employed by the builder that are on the jobs, and you get different kind of characters that you have to deal with. And I think it's very important, regardless of the personalities that you see out on the job, making sure everybody gets along. Because one thing I've noticed over the years is, if Joey works for Bob the builder, 5 years from now, Joey might go work for another builder that I don't do business with. Well, if they have a need for flooring, Joey's going to raise his hand and say, "Hey, let's call Brian. I work with him in my other company."
Mm-hmm.
So right there, I got a new customer. I didn't even have to get out of my chair. Um, so it kind of goes back with doing the right thing, and just even though sometimes with that situation we spoke about, I would have dealt with it totally different if it was Mrs. Jones, if it was a retail customer. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a totally different mentality you have to be dealing with the builders. You have to put it yourself in their shoes, in a way so you don't rock the boat but make your point. Because one swipe and you could, a good customer that gives you a couple homes a month could be gone.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
dickering over little stuff isn't worth it.
Yeah, no, I get it. Especially because they're right. They've sold this home to the homeowner. So how do they go and adjust for this allowance and say, "Hey, look, we're going over budget here because of this," and then they're going to be like, "Well, why didn't the concrete guys just do it better to begin with? Like, what's go to the concrete guy and tell him he's got to pay for it?" And that's not. It's not that simple. And those
No, it's not.
and to your point, relationships matter. You have, like you said, somebody could be working for Bob. They go and work for Tim, and now they're sitting there bringing in a new client for you because they're struggling with the current floor guy they have, and they're like, "Hey, look, this over here, no problems. Everyone's going to be happy. Let's go try this out." And that's everyone loves referrals. That's where you really like that's the bread and butter of a business, I think, is because once people hear how great you are, it almost becomes a no-brainer. They're sold before they show up, which is great. But I don't. It always amazes me when people say like that's I run my business only on referrals.
Wow, that's impressive if you can do that.
Correct. And I think it's great, but is it scalable? That's my thing. And not everybody wants to scale their business like I do, right? Like not everybody wants to be able to keep a couple of crews busy and have salespeople and admin staff and all this stuff, right? So I'm in that boat now. Like I'm getting so many phone calls and a lot of them are referrals, and it's just like, look, Kyle, we're going to wait for you. I'm like, that's like 8 weeks out right now. Really? You're going to wait? Okay, cool. Like we'll get there.
Yeah.
But can I scale a business based on referrals only? And that's, you got to have a lot of business to, I think, scale on referrals only. I think advertising is important. You always got to go and drum up new work, in my opinion. And how long can referrals last? I don't know. Once again,
Yeah.
my limited experience and learning over here.
Yeah, and if you take a little bit of everything, referral advertising, add builders work to it and just get different avenues instead of concentrating on one, I think is probably the key for any business,
Correct. Can't have, well, as you mentioned earlier, right? You can't have all your eggs in two baskets. So
Right. Right.
all right.
Yeah.
I think I think that'll do it for us. I very much appreciate your time, your insights, your knowledge, the wisdom you provided. I hope everybody has something that they can take away and apply to their business. Let's get everybody go check out flooracademypod.com. Check out the shop. You can pick up some sweet hoodies. Coverings is coming up in April. Why don't you pick up a fanny pack and sport the Floor Academy fanny pack over at Coverings? That would be awesome to see you keep all your fun stuff in there. You can help support the show over at patreon.com/Floor Academy. You set up the account, you give them your information. They bill you automatically every month. $5 a month goes a long way to helping keep the lights on around here, keep the show pumping out. Check out the YouTube channel if you're not doing that. Everything has video now. We stream it live to the Facebook group as I record them. You never know when it's going to happen. Just, if you catch one on Facebook, just tell it to give you the notification when I go live again, because I schedule these when I have moments, and I don't feel like creating a bunch of events. I'll be honest, I'm lazy. So if you catch one, awesome. Thanks for tuning in and watching. You can leave comments and whatnot as we go. And what do we got? I think that hits all of that stuff. So Flooring Domain is an award-winning online flooring directory and service marketplace that helps you find more clients, grow your online presence, your reputation, or your brand. Whether you're a carpet store, a flooring installer, perhaps a tile contractor, there are projects for everyone with a daily stream of clients visiting Flooring Domain and looking for experts like you. Flooring Domain offers a free listing option that allows you to find new client leads. You can set up a free account at Flooring Domain by visiting flooringdomain.us. Have you ever tried to install LVP on steps only to struggle with the solution for the stair nose? Introducing Snap Caps by SnapTech. You simply send SnapTech the exact LVP your client selects, and they'll turn it into a perfectly matched stair nose that clicks flush into the tread plank for a simple and reliable solution. Visit www.snaptech.biz to learn more or order. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this week. Once again, I appreciate you tuning in and listening, and I look forward to the next one. I hope you do as well. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Kyle.